everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Heartland Franchise Guy, your insider's guide to all things franchising in the local area. I'm Blake Martin, small business franchise owner and your Heartland Franchise Guy. This is the place for advocacy, resources, and education on all things franchising and for local entrepreneurs looking to learn more about the franchising industry. Mm-hmm. Our guest today is Carey Gille with Franchise Fastlane.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us today, Carey.
I'm thrilled to be here, Blake. Thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you bet. Mm-hmm. Franchise Fastlane fills a unique but a really important niche in the industry. And that's where I kind of want to start our conversation. Mm-hmm. Understanding first, you are president and co-founder of the organization. So can you tell me a little bit about your background and what led up to the founding of Franchise Fastlane?
For sure. Before we even get into what Fastlane was, yes, thinking about my background, I always wanted Blake to be an entrepreneur. I never had any desire to go into corporate America. It was ingrained in me from a young age. I wanted to own my own company, control my own day. And so when I graduated, it was the tech boom. It was the day of the .com, right? And so I partnered with a couple people and we started 3 different technology companies. And one of them started picking up some momentum. It was interesting. I grew up in Lincoln, went to school at Liberty University, also University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And there was an accountant there that had a book that valued items that we give to charity, the garbage bags we drop off at Goodwill and Salvation Army. Yeah. And the whole premise was if you would accurately value these items, you could take a much larger tax deduction. People are afraid to do it because they don't have their supplemental data. And so we licensed the rights to produce the software for this book. And we had no marketing budget. I mean, it was the typical startup. We had no marketing budget, and
just new shoes and good rubber soles.
Right. And so what I did is I wrote a press release, and we started sending it around to local media. And I started traveling as a spokesperson for that company and talking about the tax advantage. And really, it's a win-win because if you would be more generous, you're helping those less fortunate, but you're also helping yourself with a tax break. And it started picking up. And so probably because I was too young, too naive to be intimidated, I sent that press release to the Wall Street Journal, and just one of those bizarre stories. Without calling us, without telling us, they ran it. They ran it on the front page, right above the fold. I don't know if we've ever even talked about this.
I've never knew that. This is why we do the podcast.
This is why we do these. I was maybe 23. I had been filing my own taxes independent of my parents a couple years, and all of a sudden, I am a tax expert, quoted on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And so I ended up living part-time almost in New York, and the next 2 years are CNN Headline News, MSNBC, CNN-FN, U.S. News and World Report, and that was the whole story, was if you accurately valued your items, you could save more in tax deductions, and your tax deduction could be higher. And pretty soon H&R Block called and said, we'd like to tie this into tax cut. That was, exposure to millions of tax filers, exciting for us. And Tax Cut and TurboTax are fiercely competitive still to this day. And so Intuit called and said, no, we're just going to buy you. So at 25, part of selling my very first company. And it turned into career whiplash for me because I went from startup to a Fortune 500 company and committed to staying at Intuit for a number of years. And I'm so glad I did. I learned some of the disciplines that make me the professional I am today, Net Promoter, voice of the customer, so many of those things. Learned from the master, Scott Cook, just an absolute icon. And so it was good, but I also couldn't wait to get back into an entrepreneurial role. I started a company on the side called Sojourn. We monetize travel data, still alive and well, offices all over the world today. But I heard of this individual back in Omaha, Nebraska called Ryan Zink, named Ryan Zink. And actually my husband was working for him as the COO, and they were looking for somebody to lead development. And I didn't know franchising, but I loved fitness. It was a fitness model. And I loved development. And I remember saying to Ryan, I don't know franchising, but I sure know these other 2 areas. And he said, you'll learn. And I started leading development for him. We set a goal of 20 locations. It exploded. We sold 240 locations over the next 20 months. Chris and I, my husband, we bought 3 of our own. I bought 2 into a couple Snap Fitness gyms, fell in love with franchising. And to this day, my favorite definition in all of Webster's dictionary is the definition for vision, which is a clear and compelling picture of a preferable future. And for me, People think of corporate America as that clear and compelling picture. I know what I'm going to do every day. I'm going to get 10 days of vacation, my 3% raise. It's maybe not a preferable picture of a preferable future, but it's clear and compelling. And then over here, you have that preferable future that just seems out of the reach of so many. And only those that are risk averse and want to go startup go that way. But when I found franchising, it was, this is this, married with this. This is both. There is the clear and compelling picture. There is a proven path of performance ahead of you, but there's also the ability to be a business owner. Fell in love with franchising. I continue to love the space. And so Ryan went on and sold that company to Dominus Capital. He had a great exit. And so we took some time off, and I started thinking about how do I want to get back into franchising. That was the role in which I just felt I thrived. And so I called him as a mentor, and I wanted to brainstorm an opportunity for a development company. And I will never forget, we were sitting, there having coffee, and he starts chuckling, and I thought, boy, I thought this was a good idea. And he said, no, I'm laughing because I'm working on the same thing. Let's partner.
Wow.
So we started that in January
partners
of 17.
meant to be together.
Yep. So that was the beginning of Fastlane, January 2017, 5 years ago.
Fascinating. Congratulations on your 5-year anniversary, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It went
That's
by
a big
so fast.
anniversary.
It's a big anniversary. Went by really fast.
So you brought us right into the founding of Franchise Fastlane. And before I forget, one thing that I noted in there is you have successful skill sets in both tech and sales. I don't know how your brain possibly works and does that, but that's a pretty rare, unique combination. I know you take that into Franchise Fastlane, so I'm going to set you up there. But tell me, what does Franchise Fastlane do?
Franchise Fastlane is what the industry calls an FSO, a franchise sales organization. We take brands that have incredible business models, but they cannot figure out growth. And this is a common dilemma in the industry. Yeah. I talk to brands all the time. I am talking to 10 different brands this week alone. And when I ask a brand founder, what do you do? What's your company? It's like if you asked me about Fastlane, you can probably walk away from the phone and I'm going to ramble on and on and on, just like I would any of my 3 sons, right? I am so passionate about what we do. And it's the same thing. They know their haircuts, their food, their fitness, their house painting, whatever it is they do, they know it very well. But if you take that a little further and you say, but how will you usher in growth? How will you find the right franchisee to grow your brand and to carry the flag of what you've built into markets all across the country? It's crickets. I mean, that's when, hello? Hello? They don't know. They don't understand how to find leads, how to educate those potential prospects as to the opportunity at hand, how to make sure they find one that's a good fit for their model. They don't even know where to get started. So that's what we do. We usher in growth for franchise brands. Our mission is to drive extraordinary growth for the chosen few. And by chosen few, extraordinary growth for the chosen few. And we worked very carefully on every word there. And
I can tell.
Yes. And chosen few, we chose that, Blake, because of course that means our brands. That's what I was just talking to you about. But it also means partners like you. I want to drive extraordinary growth for you. It also means people in the fast lane, right? It also means franchisees and then, of course, franchisors. So drive extraordinary growth for the chosen few. That's what Fastlane does.
I like it. I can tell you were very judicious in your choice of words there.
We did. We have a strategy session at the close of every year. We pull in all of our incredible VPs and leadership team and really establish. There was one year we worked on our DNA. What are our core values? What are our mission? What are our vision? And you go back to those, right? You go back to those on a regular basis.
So I'm going to embarrass you a little bit here, but Franchise Fastlane, to the credit of the co-founders and the team you've built, has certainly become recognized as an industry leader.
Thank you.
Of all the FSOs, of all the franchise sales organizations. Being a leader obviously means, based upon what you just said to me, teaming up with the right brands. In addition to somebody that's looking for a way to usher in growth, as you said, what else are you looking for in a brand? In order to determine they have what it takes to become a leader within their niche, right?
Yes.
A leader within their category.
It's so true, and I get asked that one a lot, and like it's so key. It's one of our differentiators. We only usher in what we call, in quotes, next big thing brands. we have to see that potential. We like to say to people, imagine if you could have been one of the first franchisees for Jimmy John's, for Massage Envy, for the Orange Theory. Those are the brands we're out there finding and recognizing and bringing into the fast lane. And in 2021, I talked to 191 brands to onboard 8. So as
100 and how many?
91.
191
Yep.
to usher in 8.
8.
I don't know, Cam, you got the math on that? It's a small percentage.
It's a small percentage.
Okay.
And that's what we're seeing is it's only about 5% of brands that I talk to that appear to be a potential fit in the fast lane. And so we do have clear criteria. We established what we see as necessity versus nicety. And when somebody asks me, Carey, if you were going to invest in a brand yourself, what would you look for?
Yeah.
The beautiful thing about franchising is there's a manual. Right? That's franchise disclosure document.
Yep.
And I read probably 9 of these a week. And it is
Oh boy. And you stay awake?
And I stay awake. I read 3 yesterday.
What is in that brain?
I read 3 yesterday. And at this point, I'm really enthralled by it. But, item 2, who's your leadership? Item 3, has there been any litigation? What is the story behind that litigation? Item 5, item 6, what are the fees? Make sure you understand those fees and the limits and the ranges. Item 7, what is the investment range? Item 12, how do they define territories? Item 19, what are the earnings claims? How are franchisees earning money today? What is their EBITDA? What are their nets? What do their top line revenues look like? Item 20, are they opening locations or closing locations? You should be aware of that. All of that gives us that criteria to look for those brands that have a reasonable item 7, a strong item 19, leadership that's built infrastructure, call center, training, marketing programs, all of those things to really support a franchisee. And then beyond the FDD, you can get on the phone, as you know, because there are all the franchisees that went ahead of you. So you should validate. You should get on the line with somebody who's already a day in the life and ask them, what did you do wrong? What would you do different if you could start again?
Yeah.
Would
you do it over again?
Right. Would you do it again? That's the best question, actually. Yeah. So there are so many great opportunities in franchising. It's not like a startup. It's a proven model. You plug and play into a model that's already proven. You can read about the model per the FDD, and then you can talk to franchisees to validate the model.
And so if I'm understanding correctly, you answered a second question while answering that one. If you were looking for a franchise business today, you'd be looking for those same things that you just talked about.
I absolutely would. And we've franchised, as I mentioned, multiple times over. My husband and I were looking at a couple models right now. That's exactly when I am in the fast lane seat, and that's one of the things that is my role as the president of the company, is I find our next brands. We are going to invest in those brands extensively. Yeah. We're going to tie our brand to their brand. We're going to build all their marketing materials, the full discovery process. So I see it much the same as if Chris and I were going to personally invest into a franchise system. And my criteria would be much the same.
Gotcha. And then what you're doing, you're bolting yourselves onto these franchise organizations, those chosen 8 of 191.
Right.
And becoming a part of their development team and navigating candidates through the due diligence process to determine if they're the right fit.
Exactly right. That's exactly what we're doing. So when we onboard a brand, we spend a minimum of 8 weeks. And by then, at that point, I've already spent a couple months vetting the brand.
Okay.
Right. I was in conversations. I worked with them on their FDD to make sure that the fees were reasonable for the franchisee, to make sure the item 7 range is within, the right range, to look at the item 19 to make sure it's an honest, transparent report of franchisee earnings, all of those things. So I've already been looking at the brand for many months. Then when I hand it over to our operations team that begins onboarding, they're going to pull in marketing, videographer, legal, ops to build all the materials. We have a 6 to 7 week discovery process that prospects plug into that really walks them through the high level down to really the details of being an owner within that system. We even allow for the validation and leadership calls every week so that prospects aren't just talking to my team, they're talking to the brand, directly to the brand. And then that all wraps up with what we call a confirmation day at the end of that experience. So after they've experienced a series of calls, then they actually fly out to the brand, they see it in person, they meet the founders, shake their hand. If we're blowing insulation, they go on site and they see how it works. If it's a fitness brand, they do the workout. If it's a beauty brand, they get to experience that. And that's all part of that final decision. But we design that full process, all the marketing materials and everything that goes with that as part of onboarding.
kind of a one-stop shop for building an
franchise dev.
intact franchise development. Fascinating.
Yes.
Going back a little bit to one of the things that you were saying there, you were talking about some of the process steps. It occurred to me that, first of all, if I'm understanding correctly, you don't limit yourself by industry category of a franchise. So you work with a whole variety of different brands and categories.
I do. And that's actually a trend I've seen in the industry. I'm sure you have as well, as of late. It used to be when you thought of franchising, what did you think of?
Right. Food, fitness maybe, coffee houses.
Yes, maybe Massage Envy, some of the early beauty models, but McDonald's, right?
Yeah, retail stuff.
Orange Theory, brick and mortar. That's what you thought of. And that's one thing that I've seen in recent years is, especially our consultant partners, they have become so in tune with how to evangelize a different model that maybe a franchise investor wouldn't have thought of initially, but certainly attractive because the components of the model.
Right.
You know, they're home-based. Who would think I'm going to paint houses or I'm going to clean gutters, right? Or, I mean, I have a brand I'm getting ready to onboard right now, and we're working on the item 19. It's one of the most impressive level of earnings I have ever seen in my 20 years of franchising. And you know what they do? They build fences. That's what they do. They build fences. So if you can
super exciting stuff. I woke up yesterday thinking I got to get a fence building business.
But if that model allows somebody to work from home, not sign a 10-year lease, right? They can work from home. They can hire a few people and provide a job. They can buy a rig, buy 3 territories, start working all of those 3 territories at the same time, have manageable cost, immediate returns, see a return on investment on their franchise fee and their initial investment within the first year. It's really pretty astounding what these new service models, both B2B and B2C, are now bringing to franchising. And I'm seeing that as a new trend in the industry. I think it's pretty exciting. Not that I don't still love the fitness sector. I absolutely do. It's where I started my day this morning.
You're a customer of it.
Yeah, I think franchising will always have beauty and fitness and food, and that's excellent. But it's exciting to see us now have these models that maybe bring in a different investor. I don't think you have to have quite the net worth and liquidity you used to be required when you were building out a restaurant or a 6,000 square foot gym.
You kind of started answering my next question.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I got ahead of you.
Making this really easy on me. Taking a step back, talking about the big picture. Clearly, you have a pulse on the industry on a national, if not international level, right?
We're
what you
closely.
do every day is looking at the trends and looking at what's emerging and why and what's sustaining. What are the trends that you're seeing in the franchise industry today?
You're right in that this is a big one, what I'm seeing here. Now, when it comes to lead gen, still the number one lead gen, if you read FranConnect's annual report or look at the IFA reports that are coming out, the number one lead gen sources are still portals and organic marketing. Now, Franchise Fastlane leads into the consultant networks. The average closing rate on a portal or an organic lead is 0.5%.
Right. So a lead that comes from the internet, for example.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas when I'm working with a consultant partner truly invested in their client's future, and they have already vetted, does that client, are they a match for this brand? Do they have the financial strength for this brand? I'm able to see closing rates between 10 and 15% for my brands, because those aren't warm leads, Blake. You know this. These are hot leads ready to move forward on a brand. So I still see the trend is more on the organic side, but at Fastlane, we have leaned in more heavily on the consultant lead side. I do see this shift, like I said, in brands. I don't think it's just QSR anymore. I don't think it's just fitness anymore. I think we're starting to see more of these other sectors. And then I think what COVID did, I think when COVID came in, what we saw, I'm never going to forget it. I'm sure you won't.
I don't think anybody will.
March 2020 and COVID hits and my entire team travels. And all of a sudden we start thinking about what does life look like in light of COVID and no travel, and what are discovery days, and how does this work? And so I remember, meeting with our team and thinking, what is the minimum performance? What KPIs need to come into play here so that I can keep my team intact? Because you feel very responsible for 30 plus people on payroll. And what we were able to do is we stayed loyal to our fitness brands, loyal to our brick and mortar concepts. They're still in my inventory. You're still going to find Exercise Coach and Spenga in my inventory. And the exciting thing is they're going to have a great 2022. But we also were able to pivot, to your point, and focus a little more on these essential service business sectors that were, like I said, B2B and B2C home service sectors. And we saw a real explosion in those categories. And 2020 was our best year. That's not at all what I would have predicted, but it was our best year. Were there challenges? There were challenges. You saw it. SBA funding has always been somewhat of a challenge, but with PPP and all of the different programs that were put into place to help people in the midst of COVID and help companies and small business in the midst of COVID, that line to the SBA got much longer. So we had to be creative around deposit programs and really meet the franchisee where they were at in the midst of that. But we really saw COVID for us became an opportunity to give people hope when they needed it. People who had always dreamt of owning their own business. You've heard the quote, life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. That's where people were at. They were right at the edge of their comfort zone. And today they're business owners in one of these models that maybe they never would have thought of, cleaning gutters or painting houses or smashing garbage, as you know. And they're business owners and they love it. So for us, COVID gave us an opportunity to meet people in their time of need. And we had a great 2021 and then a great 2020 and even a better 2021. But now I'm seeing fitness come back and I'm excited for that. I'm really excited to see those sectors reemerge. I think franchising was a solution for people in COVID, and now it will just continue to grow because these other sectors, you can see Peloton stock is down, right? And people want to be back in their boutique fitness, and they want to be shoulder to shoulder to people and working out together again.
It's part of a return to normal.
A return to normal. It's coming. Yes.
Yeah. So you are obviously educating yourself and trying to practice what you preach, educating and learning everything you can on the industry so that you can impart that to your team and to the businesses that become your partners. What are you reading or listening to right now? I mean, in addition to the Heartland Franchise Guy podcast, of course.
Of course. In addition
after you finish the latest episode of this.
In addition to this. In addition. I love Jim Collins' Good to Great. I probably read that one every year.
Do you really?
That whole flywheel and what we do for brands, it so closely aligns to what we do in the fast lane. So I love that one. For years, when we had a new employee, I would write a note in the front of the book, The Energy Bus, which is all about fueling your teams and your work life and your personal life, actually, The Energy Bus. But just recently, our CEO brought us another book, and it's called Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I am...
writing that one down.
You should. I am inhaling it. I am really enjoying this one. And the whole premise of this book, Blake, is about... it's really about how marketers and business owners are failing to market effectively to customers. That in the midst of all the noise and all the distractions, we're missing the point that the hero of our story should not be us. It should not be our brand. It should not be whatever happened in our business that year. The hero of our story should be the customer. And it's a 7-part series on how to make the customer the hero of the story. It's really good. Building a story brand. I do highly recommend. You should write it down. Well, it's a good one.
You just hooked me. I hope you get a royalty
Donald
on
Miller.
this.
I don't think so. I need to look into that.
I've got one last question for you, Carey. What are you proud of?
What am I proud of? First of all, just my people. When people ask, what did Fastlane do right? Like the first thing we did right were the right people. It used to be that FSOs were just a few people with big reputations on the phone. And we came in and we did it very different. And we invested back in the company. And now we have this infrastructure in which there's a whole department for marketing, videographer. It's not one person doing all of this. There's a whole department for sales. And it's allowed us to bring in people either that had franchise dev experience or had a different level of experience and plug them into the fast lane. And what they do every day, it's not a job. It's helping people break from the 9-to-5 grind. It's allowing people to spend more time with their families as a business owner. It's something they can love doing. And we all know we're better at our jobs when we love doing it. So I'm so proud of the people in the fast lane. And I think that's the number one thing we've done right. Beyond that are other differentiators just in bringing in next big thing brands and being able to really be astute about that. I think that's a big one as well. We dedicate a director per brand, so everybody's not selling everything. One person is very passionate about the brand they're on, so that's different. So I think all of these differentiators and all of these people have probably led me to where I am today, which is the most fulfilling position I've ever been in my career. Where when I lay my head on my pillow at night, I think, what do? I usher in life change. I inspire business ownership. And that's one of our core values is, inspiring life change. And we have 5 core values: have each other's back, be gritty, be hungry, bring it, no surprises, those sorts of things. But inspire life change is my favorite one. That's my job, is to inspire life change. And so that's probably what makes me the most proud, are the people we've impacted and what I do every day in inspiring life change.
Well, there's never been a better exclamation point to a podcast than that comment there.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Carey, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy international travel schedule to be with us today.
It's so good.
We really appreciate it.
Good to be home. Thank you, Blake.
Thank you. And thanks to all of you for listening to another episode of the Heartland Franchise Guy.